Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the second session of Seamless Africa 2021. Our next session will be an interview exploring opening financial ecosystems with APIs, navigating an open and digital future, reaching inclusivity, meeting customer demand, and unlocking the world of digital commerce. Our moderator for today will be Mr. Alpesh Doshi, founder and CEO of Fintracity. I'll now invite both our speakers to turn on their webcams and microphones. And Alpesh, I'll hand it over to you to lead us in our conversation today and introduce our esteemed speaker. Over to you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the session. I'd like to introduce Mahavir. Mahavir, please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good morning to you all. This is Mahavir. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer representing Fetian Technologies, which is a group, publicly listed company based out of China. And we've been into issuance and acquiring solutions, more on the hardware and the software side of business. Our predominant market has been on the Android Smart POS. We have been actually one of the pioneers when it comes to manufacturing of Android Smart POS technologies on Android 10 and Android 11 OS, which is highly secured. And we work very closely with most of the banks and the acquirers and the financial inclusions to bring out different kind of Smart POS technologies benefiting the digital acquiring space.
Fantastic. And I'll just introduce myself. I'm Alpesh Doshi, as already mentioned. My background is in technology in fintech. I've been in fintech for about 20 years. I'm an open systems guy, an open standards guy. The kind of things I do around APIs is really fundamental to, I think, banking and finance, and I think it will change everything. And so I think, we're going to have a really good discussion. So, as an opening question, why don't we just discuss around what APIs are and why would you use an API? Mahavir, one of the challenges is with technology is really boiling down to understanding what it is for a start and understanding what the value could be. Maybe you could just lay a bit of groundwork on your company and where this has come from. Why strategically has this become important to you?
Yeah, one of the key things, when we talk about payments and when we talk about POS or point of sale terminals is the application which needs to be binded to the payment host. We have actually seen that a lot of banks are still on the traditional environment. Some of them are on ISO 8583. Some of them have moved on to the NEXO protocol. Some of them have a SPDH protocol. So there are different kind of protocols. Again, they are not on open APIs. They are having their own systems, very traditional methods. There is no sandbox environment altogether. For anyone who wants to actually, monetize by being a partner to a bank and taking the benefits of some of the datas for the region and bringing value addition to those datas is not something which has been very easy till now. Of course, we have seen EU, which is European market, which has got this standardization, which has come out, and there are regulatory frameworks which are allowing the banks to, migrate onto the open APIs and utilizing those APIs for many new innovations which are brought on table, and they are something which is benefiting not only the banks, but it is also benefiting the end customers. And in this sphere, because we focus on the merchants, it is also benefiting the merchants a lot. So I think getting into an open API framework standard is something which is the next wave. And we actually are really wanting a lot of banks in third world countries to digitalize their entire environment and shift onto the open API networks. Of course, they might have their regulatory frameworks which are connected, but I think getting into this open API and modernizing their environment is very, very healthy and important, so that the customers as well as the banks can be benefited out of it.
And when you say open API, maybe just define what you mean by an open API.
Well, when we talk about open API, there are different methods of open API. Some of them have seen that, you have the ERPs and proprietary, non-public or complex or web-based APIs, which was like kind of a first level. And then we saw that, the banks, they looked at the PSD2 and, the open banking, providing the banking facilities, API, connected to different value-added service providers. The REST API is what we talk about, considering the regulatory framework. And nowadays we have seen that a lot of regional banks have gone into cloud-based open API networks where, they have the API ecosystem, whether it is only for the banking services, it is for, the payment services, it is for the issuance services, it is for, the micro lending or the lending services. So they have specific APIs open on different departments and zones. And then this is something where they have a black box test environment, allowing them, some of the customers, to participate in different kind of application builds. They have even they have competitions, encouraging a lot of students, a lot of projects to create different kind of use case scenarios. And that is actually helping the kind of data which is required for any solution or a service to be tested, implemented, and which can actually boil down to a business environment or a commercial discussion where all of the entities can be benefited out of it.
And then, do you think there are, around the POS space, are there some standards being developed around APIs and an open ecosystem for POS?
Yes. So nowadays, what has happened is that NEXO is being considered as the next protocol in payments, NEXO. I think so that has already been started being implemented in the western part of Europe. And I think so a lot of protocol conversions will happen from the ISO 8583 to this NEXO protocol moving forward, which is, a kind of a standard. Till now, of course, any financial integrations were ISO 8583, but now we see that NEXO protocol would be one of the future standards which will be considered. And when we talk about, closed loop wallets, WLA, which is coming up with IDEMIA and Gemalto and all being a part of this forum, which is for the closed loop payments. I think so that is also going to be on the open API, and they have already started implementations in a couple of African countries as well as the European countries.
And then, which areas around the payment standard world does the NEXO payment standards, NEXO standards fit?
Yes, so basically NEXO standard directly integrates to the host and takes care of the reconciliation settlements, whether it is between the payment schemas to the acquirer, to the merchant, or within the merchant tree. So it takes care of the entire merchant onboarding, right from merchant onboarding to the merchant management, to the merchant commissioning, to the settlements and reconciliations completely into it. Yeah, it's a complete ecosystem which takes care of the NEXO.
And I know from from my understanding that it sort of matches in with the ISO 20022 standards.
Yeah, so NEXO is a little bit the new version. We can say it's an upliftment of ISO 8583. And it is basically allowing global interoperability in the payment acceptance. So that is where right now when we go into any market, we have a closed loop payment, we have a open loop payment, then we have different payment schemas, then we have different payment and reconciliation switches. I think so with NEXO, it actually allows anyone to enter into the different interoperability of different payment standards and specifications. So that is something which is now picking up a lot.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things that I see in Europe, and I'm based in London, so one of the things that I've seen is the increase in innovation from the fact that when you have open APIs and the easier flow of data and transactions, obviously not just data but transactions, that I've seen a lot of innovation happen. A lot of innovation happen. A lot of fintechs have sprung up on the basis of using these open APIs. What do you see in different parts of the world? And where do you think that the early adoption is happening around this area?
I see that open APIs are being fairly implemented and commercialized in the European parts, Western European parts. in Asia, I have not seen much. Of course, in China, we have some of the use cases where they have started moving on to the open API frameworks. But apart from that, we're still actually not having a complete regulatory overview in terms of when it comes to, of course, payments, because I more specialize on the payment side. But we have not seen more adoptability in other African countries. Of course, when we talk about West Africa, we have GMUMA. In the Central Africa, we have GMAC. In the Middle East, we have MADA. So, these are all the regulatory, compliances and switches. But till now, we have still not seen them shifting onto the open API. As I was just mentioning before, NEXO is more on the ISO 20022 standards. But the best part about it is that it actually brings out a common implementation specification. So that is one of the very important point, especially on the testing side, in terms of certification of different payment schemas. The entire workload becomes very easy, and the time to market, it actually reduces.
Cool. But do you think are there sort of specific new services that could be developed with open API? So from your business and seeing it across the market, what new things are being developed across the whole value chain? From the front end, from the merchant, but also from the POS side or from companies. What are you seeing as the innovation going on? What kind of things are examples of the application of open APIs in innovating?
Okay. So if I talk about some of the use cases, what we have seen is that, payments are required at most of the places. Now, these payments can be your closed loop payments, that can be your QR, or it can be contactless, or it can be tap on phone. And then you have the card-based payments where you have the credits which are there, whether it's IC, MSR. But what we are seeing today is that these payments have been clubbed. Like I can talk about restaurant business, I can talk about hospitality business, I can talk about patient management systems, I can talk about insurance companies getting into it. I'm talking about, there are so many different use cases, inventory management, logistics services. So wherever you have the end part, which is payment, it is actually bundled along with different kind of use case scenarios and trying to create a very open environment. One of the example which I see in open API in Africa is also, creating a agency banking infrastructure. I'm not sure if you're aware, but in Uganda, there is a company which actually implemented a whole level of cloud-based agency banking service implementation, where the banks do not need to invest in the infrastructure or the technology. It's directly integrated to the CBS of the bank, and then one common infrastructure allows people to or the acquirers to start acquiring different banking agents or banking correspondents, what we call, where the entire KYC process is automated, your entire bank onboarding process is automated, different banking services, depending on the business model, are provided to the end customer using the different kind of smart POS, whether it's with biometrics, with face recognition, along with the payments. I think so that is something which is also picking up now.
Cool. And then what do you see from a customer benefit perspective? So what benefits does the customer get? So if we're talking about the merchants as a customer, what benefits did they get around having this kind of availability around open APIs?
Well, for the customers, it is, one of the biggest thing is that innovations. One is, you have loyalty rewards, which is picking up. You have, different reward mechanisms. You have different services which the customers can get. The MDRs automatically reduced, so the merchants are benefited in terms of offsetting their MDRs or their existing tariffs against some of the other value-added services which they can bring on board. It actually streamlines the entire operations and customer support for the end customer. I think so. That is something which we are looking at right now, which is a drastic change by implementing open APIs.
And what about the front end from a customer perspective? So if you have the bank customer and you have the merchant acquiring company, how is the end customer, the consumer in this case, or a business, what would you see that they would get extra that these open APIs will provide?
So I'll just give you an example. Say, for example, I'm in one of the country and I have to use the application of the bank, for their mobile banking facilities. Now I want to buy a top up, or I want to buy, some goods. Again, I have to, go through a different level of application. So there are so many multiple applications. Now, just imagine if I'm trying to bind them, all of them together into one simple application, which is very customer friendly. Usability is very easy, and I'm trying to give them different options depending on the APIs which are being leveraged. I think so the customer is actually going to be benefited a lot in terms of operational issues. So that is something which we are actually seeing the biggest advantage of open APIs. And also we have seen that now the soft pause has come down, so you can convert your smartphones into contactless acceptance devices like tap to phone. And that is also something which is allowing a lot of small shop owners, which would love to accept payments, but are very much focused onto the cash payments. And, the governments and all the regulatories are really working hard of creating a cashless society. And that is something also what we are looking at by, opening out the APIs and allowing different use case scenarios and applications to come on. I think so. A lot of digital economy, or we talk about cashless society, is being encouraged by doing that.
Cool. And as you can imagine, you're trying to move, if you're moving from a closed proprietary system to an open API system, open API model, one of the challenges is the cost of actually migrating to these new technology architectures, processes, data. What are you seeing around the sort of key challenges of actually getting there? So what are the challenges to actually get to a point where you can embed and use open APIs in your business? So, one of the things we all know, right? Banking transformation and digital transformation of banking is pretty slow and pretty cumbersome and pretty inefficient generally, because their environments are very complex. What are you seeing as the barriers for adoption, and how do you think that the barriers can be removed?
Yeah. So one of the things which we have been seeing is the complexity of the current deployment and the infrastructure. There are security risks which are involved. There are different securities, which every bank has their own security and IT audit teams, and I think so. These are the two main factors, and of course the regulatory, compliances. I think so. These are the main three factors where a lot of banks who are actually very open to move and shift onto open APIs, but have still not actually moved onto the open API frameworks. And the cost, which is again there, I see that cost is not a major issue, because today also with the traditional systems, there have been, there is a huge capex and opex which the banks are already paying. In fact, one of the advantage with the new technologies which bring on board is your operational cost reduces, as well as your capex can also reduce, because now most of the technologies are also available on cloud. They are also available on physical infrastructure, of course, but they are on a leasing model, they are on service model. So I think so cost is not a major chunk, but I think so the complexity of their existing deployments and the security risk and the regulatory frameworks are very important to be considered.
And is that is that based on geography and country? Because obviously every country has their own regulation on payments.
Yes, absolutely. It absolutely depends on geography, locations, country frameworks. Of course, like if you go down to West Africa, you have a common currency, which is CFA. But if you go down to, Kenya has a different shilling, Tanzania has a different shilling, Uganda would have a different shilling, conversion ratios are different. Of course, they call themselves as East African Community, but every country has its own regulatory framework, which has been established.
So, if you're talking about open standards and open APIs, how can you match between the fact that every country has an has their own regulatory regimes compared with open API? So, is there a way of creating uniformity around a specific part of the stack to make it easier?
Yeah, that's where interoperability also comes up. I think so. This is where a lot of solution providers are working on trying to incorporate, all the scenarios of that particular region and try to deploy one particular standardized solution, which allows them to have a flexibility on creating different security thresholds, as well as taking care of the complexities and also the regulatory frameworks of that particular region. And I think so there are already some POCs underway, especially in East Africa. There are some POCs on the way on the northern part of Africa, which are already working on this kind of deployments, but they are still on the POC stage.
And so if you look across the world, where do you see the fastest adoption? Which parts of the world and even countries do you see the fastest adoption?
I see, of course, EU, of course, and I'm also looking at India.
Right.
So India is actually, if you look at the whole, I'm not sure if you're aware of Aadhaar-enabled payment services, which is linked to the biometrics, and the Bharat QR, which is a centralized QR, right from the entire part of India, whether it's Google Pay or Apple Pay or Samsung Pay, everyone has to adopt to it. So I think so that kind of, when it comes to payment, I think so India has made a big success and a bigger stride. And I think so India is actually slowly moving from payments and now also looking at getting into the issuance part. So India is, of course, has adopted successfully when I talk about open API standards.
Fantastic. And the whole thing around digitization of payments, I think, is a big thing all over the world. Do you see? I mean, okay, COVID has changed everything, right? COVID has changed everything just because the digitization of the world has accelerated because of COVID. But do you see the adoption of cashless payments happening more because of, obviously, of COVID, but also of these new open API models?
Yeah, I think so. That is what I told you, that, the open API actually enables a lot of players to come out with different use case scenarios and promote, cashless payments. Cashless payments is always a kind of, replacement for physical cash. Credit is always going to remain. So no matter what, but credit cards, credit card services, everyone loves credit, and in Latin America also credit cards is promoted more because people love to buy credits. Cashless is something which is a replacement of cash, and I think so, yes, India, China, many other countries have shown the way towards cashless economy. Using the cash, physical cash, has actually reduced drastically, and I believe that that is the way to go, because more and more banks and the financial inclusions, they actually open out and shift or modernize their infrastructure. I think so that is where a lot of companies can come out with different service models and different kind of use case scenarios which can promote indirectly a cashless society.
Fantastic. I mean, one of the key things is, we're on a Seamless Africa conference. I'd love to get your perspective on the adoption in Africa around this stuff and what you're seeing in various parts of Africa, just because open APIs, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's reasonably well adopted around the front end, around consumer end, around sharing data. But around the back end, it's frankly just hasn't happened in Western Europe. I mean, I think it's pretty early days. Yes. So how do you see, do you see Africa being a pioneer in this, and why would they do that?
I still believe that Africa is still time, because finally this is all benefited when you have a large subscriber base or a consumer base. So the banking penetration in Africa is still not, up to the mark as compared to most of the other developing nations. I believe that it is still going to take some years for them to reach up to that level. Because the more amount of banking customers and usability is there, I think so that is something where it will allow the banks to really start focusing on interoperability as well as open banking API standards. I can just give you a very simple example. You go to Kenya today, M-Pesa leads the way, right? So, people have more M-Pesa accounts than the bank accounts. So, that is how the scenario is when we talk about payments. Now, there is hardly anyone which can compete with M-Pesa. So it is like a monopoly business which is happening in Kenya. But when you go down to like Tanzania, there of course, you have M-Pesa, you have Airtel Money, you have both of them over there. But the banks are still trying to roll out, different kind of services. We have also seen that in Africa, especially in eastern part, the independent financial inclusion companies have been more successful in launching wallet services rather than the banks. And when we go down to Indian countries or Asian countries, I think so the banks have already adopted and launched different kind of wallet services in order to make sure that they always capture the pie of the cashless society.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think, and do you see, has COVID accelerated that? In Africa with COVID happening, has the digitization and the use of cashless payments accelerated? Obviously, in Kenya, it's a very special case in Africa, but in general, have you seen that happen?
East Africa, yes, it's a special case because they have already been, before the COVID times, they were more into the the digital payment side of business. But I think so cashless, getting into Africa as a cashless society, it is still time. It will still take its own time. They have still not developed that much. Even the regulatory frameworks are not there, and means there is no not a single successful story which comes out right from the government, to implement a cashless society, and where the government has actually done a lot of things in terms of upgrading their infrastructure and implementing such kind of services. So I still believe, as per me, it is still time. But if we go down to Latin America, yes, there are some countries who have actually implemented it very well, implemented it. Asia is always there. Europe, I think so many of the countries are picking up now, and they are really focusing on the new technologies and adoptions, with soft POS coming up, tap to pay coming up, closed loop wallets coming up, interoperability in that coming up. So I think so, yeah, that is where we see a lot of attraction.
So, if there was one as a sort of final question, is there one area where you think there will be a significant change because of having open API and open API standards?
There are two factors. One is the penetration of smartphones with the internet availability. And the second factor is, people are getting used to smart devices. I think so. These are the two factors which has allowed, innovations on, even on the payment space. And I believe that the more the customer base, which becomes more and more smarter, I think so the adoptability of APIs will grow, because that is where a lot of demand from the market will actually drive the infrastructure upliftment. That is where I see that.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting times ahead. And Rion, thank you very much, Mahavir.
Thank you.
And Rion, I'd like to hand it back over to you.
Yeah, Rion, thanks once again. And thank you, Alpesh. Pleasure interacting with you, man.
Thank you very much. Rion, are you there?
Yes, fantastic. Thank you to both of you, to Mahavir and Alpesh, for taking the time and participating here with us at Seamless Africa 2021. And we hope to work with you both on our future Seamless events coming into 2022. To our audience members, please tune in to our next session, which will begin in 5 minutes, exploring contactless payment innovation in a low-touch economy, exploring a pragmatic, hygienic, cashless framework. We'll see you there. Again, speakers, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.